Welcome. My name is Susan Acton, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Grosse Pointe. But today, I am representing the League of Women Voters of Michigan, their Education Fund Board. It is their presentation, slightly modified for our own cities. And the purpose today is to give you a brief overview about the 3 statewide ballot proposals on the November 8th ballot. And because there is heightened interest in election security these days, I will also briefly cover some of Michigan election laws. And let me turn to that now. Again, I will mention that this presentation is brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Michigan Education Fund. This is the group that works to register and provide voters with election information through our election resource, vote411.org, through our printed voter guides, our candidate forums, and debates. The League never supports or opposes candidates or political parties. This is an educational presentation. We are presenting both sides of the issues as best as possible. Now, in addition to the 3 ballot proposals, there are several statewide offices on the ballot. These are the U.S. House of Representatives, the governor and lieutenant governor, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, 2 seats on the Michigan Supreme Court, our state senators, our university boards, state representatives, and 3 ballot proposals. The local ballot also has quite a bit on it. You will see the District 1 Appeals Court, our Circuit Court, Probate Court, our Wayne County Commissioner, the Wayne County Executive, the Wayne County Sheriff, the Grosse Pointe Public Systems School Board, and there is a public transportation millage, which is to renew 99.9949 mills for smart buses. We are very fortunate in Michigan to have a constitution that gives 2 powers to the voters that not all states provide. 24 states have these powers. The first one is called the legislative initiative, and it gives voters the right, if certain conditions are met, to initiate legislation. The second is to amend the Michigan Constitution. You should know that nothing in our Constitution may be altered without the approval of the voters. Any action by the legislature to amend the Constitution must be placed on the ballot. This year, there are 3 statewide ballot proposals to amend the Constitution that all Michiganders will be voting on. They are transparency and term limits, promote the vote 2022, and reproductive freedom for all. Note that if any of these pass, they will go into effect 45 days after approval by the voters. Now, the first one is our transparency and term limits. And this proposal was placed on the ballot by a 2/3 vote of the Michigan legislature. Therefore, no signatures were required. You did not see this on petitions. Now, here's what this proposal would do. It would require members of the legislature, the governor, the lieutenant governor, the Secretary of State, and Attorney General file annual public financial disclosure reports after 2023. They would have to include their assets, liabilities, income sources, future employment agreements, gifts, travel reimbursements, and positions held in organizations except religious, social, and political organizations. It would also require that the legislature implement, but not limit or restrict, reporting requirements. And the third thing it would do is it would replace current term limits for state representatives and state senators with a 12-year total limit in any combination between House and Senate, except that a person elected to the Senate in 2022 may be elected the number of times allowed when that person became a candidate. And as with all ballot proposals, you vote yes or no. Now, Michigan's legislature so far has failed to pass any legislation regarding financial transparency for elected officials. Michigan's current legislative term limits permit 3 terms in the House of Representatives for a total of 6 years and 2 terms in the Senate, total of 8 years, the total altogether 14 years. Michigan has had term limits over the last 30 years. They were adopted in 1992 by voters. In the 1990s, numerous states adopted term limits for all state offices. Federal offices were not included because that would have to amend the United States Constitution. So 15 states have term limits now. Michigan is one of 5 states with lifetime limits. The other 10 have limits only on consecutive serving. Michigan and Idaho are the only 2 states in the country right now that do not require personal financial disclosure by state elected officials. And this is a major reason that the Center for Public Integrity ranks the state of Michigan as last in the nation in transparency. The Michigan legislature has discussed various bills over the years to require elected officials to report their finances. None have passed. So how does this work? If passed, beginning in 2024, elected state legislative and state executive officials must file those annual financial disclosure reports on their income, assets, liabilities, gifts from lobbyists, positions held in organizations, and agreements on future employment. Those are filed with our Secretary of State. And as for term limits, after 2022, persons cannot be elected to terms in the Michigan House or the Michigan Senate for terms that total more than 12 years. A person could serve all 12 years in the Michigan Senate. That would be 3 4-year terms. Or they could serve 12 years in the Michigan House, 6 2-year terms, or any other combination of terms that do not exceed 12 years. It is believed that a 12-year lifetime limit will keep the benefits of term limits, but would also allow House members to focus on the serious work of legislation in the chamber where they were elected. Gone would be the pressure to immediately start seeking out that next position. Supporters of this ballot proposal include all of these listed on your screen. I could highlight the League of Women Voters of Michigan, and there are a few others. Critics of the proposal have attacked the rapid vote that state lawmakers cast in May to place the measure on the November 8th ballot. They called that an ambush. These people have argued that this proposal was drafted by politicians and lobbyists to make money off their connection to the government. There are also those who oppose term limits completely and would rather see them eliminated. Opponents to this ballot proposal include the Term Limits Defense Fund and U.S. term limits. All right, moving on to Promote the Vote 2022. Now, this proposal was put on the ballot through the petition signatures. 669,972 signatures were turned in. That was far in excess of the 425,059 that were needed. This proposal has a lot of provisions. 9 here are listed. And because each are important, I am going to go through each of them. The first one recognizes the fundamental right to vote without harassing conduct. The second requires military or overseas ballot to be counted if they are postmarked by election day. This proposal also provides the voter the right to verify their identity with photo ID or a signed statement, as we do now. It will provide the voter the right to apply just one time to vote absentee in all elections. It requires state-funded absentee ballot drop boxes and postage for absentee applications and ballots. It provides that only elected election officials may conduct post-election audits. It requires 9 days of early in-person voting. It allows donations to fund elections, which must be disclosed. And it requires that canvass boards certify election results based only on the official records of votes cast. Now, Michigan voters passed the first Promote the Vote campaign in 2018, placing many new voting rights in the Michigan Constitution already. So why do we need a petition drive and a ballot proposal? Well, Michigan has various laws that regulating voting that can be changed by the legislature, and they have attempted to do so multiple times since the last election, but all were vetoed. Voting rights that are placed in the Michigan Constitution cannot be changed without a vote of the people. Passing Promote the Vote in 2022 will help ensure every voice is heard and every voice is counted. We think voting is critical to the integrity of our democracy, which is why our fundamental voting rights should be respected and protected in Michigan's Constitution. Promote the Vote 2022 would recognize the fundamental vote without harassing conduct. What else does it do? Well, it will enhance election integrity and increase election security by modernizing how our elections are administered to ensure that every vote counts. By voting yes, you can ensure that our elections are fair, accurate, and secure, and that election results are determined based on the votes of Michigan citizens whose identity is verified prior to counting their vote, whether they vote in person or by mail. And to be clear, Promote the Vote 2022 provides voters the right to verify their identity with a photo ID or a signed statement, same as today. We do think Promote the Vote 2022 will make voting more convenient and accessible for Michiganders of all backgrounds, such as requiring that military or overseas ballots would be counted even as long as they were postmarked by Election Day, and giving voters the right to a single application to vote absentee in all elections, additional drop boxes, and early voting. All of these make voting more convenient and more accessible. The supporters include this list. And again, the League of Women Voters of Michigan does support and in fact petitioned for this ballot proposal. What do opponents say? Opponents claim that the measure would open the door to abuse. Opponents have been opposed to wide expansions of absentee voting, primarily because of security or cost concerns. And these are the organizations that have worked against this proposal. All right. And the third ballot proposal that I will discuss today is reproductive freedom for all. This proposed constitutional amendment would establish a new individual right to reproductive freedom, including the right to make and carry out all decisions about pregnancy, such as prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, contraception, sterilization, abortion, miscarriage management, and infertility. It would allow the state to regulate abortion after fetal viability, but not prohibit it if medically needed to protect a patient's life or physical or mental health. And it would forbid state discrimination in enforcement of this right. It would prohibit prosecution of an individual or a person helping a pregnant individual for exercising rights established by this amendment. And it would invalidate any state laws that would conflict with the adoption of this amendment. So where are we right now? Well, on June 24th, 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned that landmark Roe versus Wade decision. That was a 6-3 vote. Almost half a century ago, the Roe versus Wade ruling was the basis for establishing a constitutional right to abortion. The case that was brought before the court this year was Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization. And this ruling means that states must decide what the law will be regarding abortion. So in Michigan, we already had a 1931 law. That law banned abortion, and that law would have been reactivated. However, our Michigan courts have issued an injunction on the law, so abortions with certain restrictions are still allowed. For some background, in 2020, 18% of all pregnancies in Michigan resulted in an abortion, 15% in a miscarriage. Those under 18 accounted for just 2% of all abortions in Michigan. So that number is 724. Why is this measure needed? Supporters will say that important medical decisions should be guided by a patient's health and well-being, not by a politician's beliefs. But for far too long, politicians across the country have been fighting to restrict reproductive health care, and now they are gaining ground. Now that the U.S. Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade, a 1931 Michigan law could go back into effect. That would make abortion illegal and threaten doctors with prison for up to 15 years for providing an abortion. In addition to ensuring access to a broad range of reproductive health care, this amendment would make sure no one goes to prison for providing safe medical care. When people are able to make decisions about their own reproductive health care, including whether and when to have children, they have more control over their health and their economic security. Specifically, this measure will ensure that all Michiganders have the right to safe and respectful care during birthing. Everyone has the right to use temporary or permanent birth control. Everyone has the right to continue or end a pregnancy pre-viability, and no one can be punished for having a miscarriage, stillbirth, or abortion. And there are many supporters for this ballot proposal as well, and you can see the list on your screen. Now, there are opponents to this. The 1931 Michigan law that bans abortion, except to save the life of the mother and make it a felony to perform an abortion, should be the law. That's what our opponents say. And they say it should continue to be the law. They say this amendment would repeal dozens of state laws, including our state's ban on tax-funded abortions, the partial birth abortion ban, and fundamentally alter the parent-child relationship by preventing parents from having input on their children's health. And here are some opponents of this proposal. All right, we've talked about both sides of three important ballot proposals. Now we'll switch to the second part of the presentation and talk about the election process in Michigan. And we'll focus on three key factors: registering to vote, absentee voting, and certification of the election. All right, registering to vote. One would hope that you are already registered to vote, but perhaps you have a student in your household or someone that is new to Michigan. You should be refreshed on this through the 15th day before an election, which this year is through October 24th. It is very easy to register to vote. You can do it by mail. You can do it in person at the Secretary of State's office or a city clerk's office, county clerk's office, or participate in a voter registration drive. You can do it online. Online is probably the easiest. From the 14th day before the election through election day at 8 o'clock, you only have one option. You have to go to the city or county clerk's office and bring proof of your residency. Absentee voting. Absentee voting counted for more than half of the votes in our last election. It has proved to be extremely popular. And there are two ways to do that. You can absentee vote in person. Okay, that means just voting early. You go to a city or township clerk's office. You submit a completed application in person. They will give you an absentee ballot in person. You can vote that absentee ballot on the spot and submit it immediately, or you can take it home, vote it at home, and then drop it off or mail it back. If you wanted to do the whole thing by mail and vote at home, you submit a completed application for an absentee ballot by mail. By the way, you can get those applications online or call the city county clerk's office. The absentee ballot will be sent to you by mail. You vote it and you mail the absentee ballot back or drop it off. Now notice, you have to sign that ballot envelope with your official signature, the one on your driver's license, in order for the ballot to count. And ballots must be received by 8 p.m. on election day. Why would you want to vote absentee? No lines. If you're a busy person, you vote when it's convenient. You don't have to arrange for a specific ride on a specific day. And also, you have plenty of time to study the choices. All right, let's talk about our County Board of Canvassers. Once the election is over, the County Board of Canvassers is charged with certifying the election. There are 4 members of a Board of Canvassers, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and they have staggered 4-year terms. They are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners from names that are supplied by the 2 parties. What are their duties? Well, within 14 days of the election, they meet to review election paperwork from the precincts. They certify the election results in the county. It takes a majority vote of those 4 canvassers to certify. And then they send the election certification report to the State Board of Canvassers. They have meetings, and those meetings are open to the public. The public may observe. They do not get to participate. However, we have trained league members who observe these meetings and report any irregularities. There is also a State Board of Canvassers. Those also have 4 members, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans with staggered 4-year terms. They are appointed by the governor, and she obtains those from names provided by the 2 parties. Their duties are within 6 weeks of election. They should meet to review election certification reports from the counties, and they certify election results. And also a majority, 3 out of 4, are needed to certify our election. Their meetings are also open to the public to observe, but not to participate. And we also have trained league members observing those meetings and reporting on any irregularities. I need to let you know about 3 important voter resources that are available to you. The first being our Michigan Secretary of State's mi.gov/vote website. It is deep and it tells you pretty much anything you need to know about voting. There is a website here for michiganvoting.org, and this is the work of about 30 different organizations across the state, all of whom are participating heavily in our voting process. Excuse me. And offers very good information as well. The last one is vote411.org. Excuse me. And that is the League of Women Voters special website that gives you all the information you need to vote. With that, my hope and my advice is that you will become an informed voter and vote on November 8th. Thank you.